Okay, hello again. We are slowly ready to start our next panel. Before we start, I would like to thank again Maya and Roiben for the fantastic lecture. It was very, very interesting. And this next panel, as you can see, is called Public Space as a Site for Civic Action. We decided to have this panel in our conference because revolution happens in spaces. And we wanted to talk a little bit about the role of public space now and about the role of art intervention in public space, but also political interventions in public space. Our speakers are numerous. We have Pavel Karous from the Czech Republic, Kristina Norman from Estonia, Svatopluk, Mikyta and Zuzana Bodnárová from Banská Nica in Slovakia, Monika Drożyńska from Poland, and our moderator is local political representative Pepijn Kennis. Pepijn studied sociology and urban geography in Brussels and urban development in Brussels, Copenhagen and Vienna. He was a member of the Civic movement Agora, which he currently represents in the parliament. And one of their key issues is access to public spaces and creating a new way of representative democracy. So welcome to Pepijn and to all our speakers. And Pepijn will introduce the individual speakers once again. Then they will have a series of short presentations. And then there's again space for a wider debate with you and our guests. So, Pepijn.
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon, and thanks for having me. I was very happy to be invited to be here this afternoon, even if, as you correctly explained, I'm not really an artist. I do work with public space. I try to work with bringing democracy back to people. We want to do that with Agora through a citizens' assembly constituted by a civic lottery rather than elected representatives. So changing the way we debate the future of our cities. This is something I'm very much involved in. Before I was in parliament, I did that through occupying abandoned spaces with organizations and opening up to the public. Supporting really civic action through the availability of space. And now we try to do that with Agora through giving a voice to people in a different way. So my background is not artistic at all, which means that I'll maybe ask some silly questions every once in a while, like, okay, but what does that artistic thing mean to people that are not into art? But let's first hear from our participants to the panel, and we'll each give them a brief time to present their work, their person, their involvement in this issue of public space as a site for civic action. And so we have Pavel, we have Kristina, we have Svatopluk and Zuzana, and then we have Monika. How do we do this? You guys wanted to see each other's presentations, right? So maybe I'll just start with giving Pavel the word and the microphone, and then you guys can sit here and then we can all take place on the stage to start the debate. Thank you. This is Pavel Karous. Do I say that correctly?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Well, the floor is yours.
May I have
This one?
No.
Should it be coming? All right, we're trying to turn on the projector. Should be coming soon now. Maybe Pavel, you can already start saying something about yourself, what brought you here, what is it you're working on, and then we'll see if we can get the projector going in a little bit.
It's terrible, the censorship. I'm a sculptor from Prague, and I'm happy to show you a few of my work, which is somehow connected with the public space, especially the public space in Czech Republic or in Czechoslovakia in 60s, 70s, and 80s. My first project which I want to show, it's called Aliens and Herons, and its focus on the fine art produced from the fine art in the public space, in the real socialism in the Czechoslovakia. I made some kind of project which is a collection of mostly like about 10% of all production of sculptures in the public space from this era. I tried at the beginning, 15 years ago, and I tried to, in the goal to lose the weight, to bicycle around these sculptures, but doesn't work. But I make this collection of about 2,000 realization in the public space of Prague, and this is how it looks like. This object, about this project, I call Aliens and Herons, because have you seen on your left side, for example, when I came to this object, I asked people what they think about that, and this local talk about these local nicknames to these objects. It was actually the name of the project. So when I speak to the students of the primary school, secondary school, which was near of these objects, they call me that it was their meeting point, and they call it alien as the cocoon from the movie of science fiction movie Alien. Or other nickname was Triffids and Herons, the water birds. Was very obsession of the modernity in Czechoslovakia. And how it looks like. And from this time, I realized that this is something very interesting, because we have been no educated about this kind of art, because our tutors, our teachers from the university, they hate everything from this era before the 1989, especially the official state production, which I show you now. So it was something like censorship, but hidden censorship. So when I driving by the bicycle and see this thousands of these beautiful objects, and then I realized this is very interesting that we are not talk about it. We don't know the name of the artist. We don't know the name of the art. We don't know how to deal with it. So I start to make this collection. This system. Coming from 1965, when the government of Czechoslovakia created a new law, which is on the Western world known as a person for art project, which actually says that 1 till 4% from the budget to the architecture has to be spent on the art. Okay. Yeah, this is a system how it works. And this is like typical show of this art. You can easily see that the like stupid propaganda, it was only like 1% of the all production. Mostly 99% was this kind of international modernistic or tired modernistic sculptures. After in our revolution in 1989, it's always like every revolution, the revolution never win the people who started, but the people who actually end it. And we started with the democratic revolution 1989, and we with the liberal revolution, and we ended with the neoliberal revolution in 1991, when the first prime minister and also the economic the leader of economic transformation, Václav Klaus, after his prime minister, he was also president, actually moved the neoliberal dictate on our country, which you can hear on his you can read on his speech about this time. And all these state support of art has been destroyed, totally demolished, And we have actually know the system person for art because they told us that this is the communist system. So nobody told us in this time that this is absolutely normal in Western world, in the North America, in USA, in Canada, in France, when they have this appraised artistic, for example. I see here in Belgium, I'm first time in Belgium, I see many examples of this person for art system. So they told us this is something which create communists, so we have to destroy it because if the people want the art in the public space, they will pay it from their self-money, which is absolutely non-possible because if we will imagine, we could imagine very rich people which like art, but there is no reason to why they will not will push give money to the public art projects and not to their private collection. So we can actually says it in the numbers. Between 1965 till 1991, when this system worked, has been only in Prague, in the capital of the Czech Republic, created 2,500 realization in the public space. After 1991 till today, it's only 59 realization in the public space. I mean the permanent realization in the public space. So we can see that we cannot even compare. We cannot compare these two eras, and we are talking only about the art in the public space. So, other part of this project, I create a book. We create a book about the Hotel Praha, which has been destroyed 4 years ago by the most richest guy in the Czech Republic, which is Petr Kellner. He actually lived near of this hotel, and he need for his protection, especially against the paparazzi. So he have to create some kind of field which is empty. So he buy this hotel and destroy it. And I make a book about. You can see the formula. How much millions has been spent for the art in the 1980s. It was 14.5 million to the art in the time when a normal price every month's salary was 2,000 Czech krona. So it was an amazing amount of money. And you can see how this is actually father of one of the. This is Miloš Z, the sculptor. It's a father. Martin. This is father of Martin. And but we can see that this art from the 80s wasn't really propaganda, it was kind of international modernism. And now you can, it has been totally destroyed. Even this project has not been saved. The hotel was private and has been bought by the multimillionaire. He was about 126 most richest guy on the world. And he bought the hotel just because his family living near of the hotel and they need the area for their own protection. So this is like a typical, it shows us how these enormous capital in one hand can be totally destructive to the city. Yep, that's yeah. So my motor is the angriness, as you see very. Like when you see these objects, I saw it cut it by machines and throw it as a rubbish, and so that's why I call it like barbarism. And these kind of projects also inspired me as a sculptor to doing my own projects in a public space. For example, if because we after last 10 years in Prague has been destroyed about 450 realization in a public space. So if we will make fun from, I don't know, so-called Islam State, which destroying for the YouTube video some ancient sculptures. In Czech Republic, we in last 10 years destroy 450 sculptures in the public space because of this because of from the let's call it communist era. it wasn't actually, it was state capitalism, but from the real socialism era. So if this object has been destroyed, and I have a photography of this picture as I put it on some kind of stage design or scenography, how to call it, and put it into the public space. Or if some object is in, there is possibility it will be destroyed, I create some kind of protection, geometric protection. It was quite funny because when we make it with my friends at the morning with the uniform of non-existing city hall garden reconstruction, the police came and we says that we are preparing the statue for the winter, and they says, okay, continue. One of the object is it's chewing gum, because we ask this public space is often occupied, which I very loved, by skateboardists and this. Never mind. But this kind of sports are occupied by place. So ask like 14-year-old boy, what do you think about this late modernity? And it's like it's a chewing gum. And I realized that it's actually something similar. So I move it for like 3 months to the chewing gum. This is what is connected to with this very stupid anti-communistic discourse, which are now leading our discourse in Czech Republic. This is the rest of the monument giving to the two heroes which fighting against the fascism in the 40s and has been tortured to death by Gestapo. And in 1991, this monument has been destroyed because they was both communist. And I ask by this gesture, what happens with these heroes? They are not heroes anymore just because Stalinism in the 50s, but they have no connection with the 50s because they was already dead. Yeah. So I put back some kind of symbols which are this postmodern transformation of the Red Star. I have time. So I will.
If you could round, and we can definitely get back to some of the things you've been talking in the debate.
So last few. 2
minutes?
Yeah, 2 minutes. Okay. So this is what drive me on, that somehow talk about this monument of this era of 60s, 70s, and 80s. This is, for example, the monument of the friendship of Czechoslovakia and Soviet Union, which has been transformed in 1991 into the monument of the victim of communism, just changing with the name, but the forms stay. So it's, of course, it's funny, this rewriting of history. So I try to make an object which is which want to show it as an object, as an art object from some from some artist. So I give it to the Rudolf Svoboda, which was for me very interesting sculptor. But he was communist and he made it. He made these kind of monuments. And so I somehow comment as a sculptor his sculpture work. So I try to move it from the that is not a monument of the friendship between Czechoslovakia and Soviet Union, and also it's not the monument of the victim of communism, but it's a monument for the art for this sculptor called Rudolf Svoboda. So I create this kind of objects, and on the floor was information about other art objects from the artist. And this is the last one I want to show, which is reaction on the destroyed sculpture called Communist. And I put it on the same place, in the same size, everything what is on the sculpture, but without the Communist. So I clean the figures, and you can see there is only the symbol of atom and the Sputnik, two symbols of the modernity to control the scientific goals of the time, and but the Sputnik start to be a little bit more it was too much modernistic. As a postmodernic person, I move it into this small garden family grill, which is somehow for me the symbol of the temporary time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pavel. Thank you. Yeah. Great. Very, very interesting stuff. I'm very interested in seeing how the other panelists will react on your thoughts, and maybe we can address the issue of how art should be funded. Should it be funded by the state? If then, can it be critical? How else can art in public space play a politicizing role, maybe? But before we go into that, let's welcome, of course, our next panelist, Kristina, who is based in Tallinn, if I'm correctly. And you want this micro, maybe? Does it work?
Works, yes. Hello. So which ones do I use? These ones?
I think this one is to go one slide further. No one's to go back. There we go.
Well, because I was invited to talk about art and public space, and there are only a few projects that are directly corresponding to this task. So this one is probably the project I want to talk is from 2009, which is 10 years ago. And I tend to be identified with this project. And for some years, I try to not to talk about this project at all because I'm pretty tired of it. But because the task was to talk about interventions in public space, I need to talk about this again. So the project was titled After War. And I represented Estonia in Venice with this project in 2009. And here is an object called the Central Golden Object. And as you can see, it's an effigy of a monument. It's golden color. It's well, it's actually hanging, but I wanted it to look like it's levitating and that it's pretty ambiguous whether it's falling or rising. Also, I wanted to strip it of its bronze original corporality. And in fact, I wanted to talk about in-betweenness and ambiguity of history and my own identity as someone who doesn't belong to either of the two main, one might say, memorial collectives in Estonia, the major Estonian one that is taught at school, the new version of history, the history of the newly independent Estonia, and the other one who is also taught at school the same history but somehow cannot identify with it completely. Actually, I went to a Russian school in Tallinn, and I was also taught that history. Well, I didn't have much problems with that, but I know that many of my classmates really couldn't identify with this negative image of the descendants of occupiers of Estonia. And so this central golden object is in a way trying to oppose this monument, which is the bronze original, actually by an Estonian sculptor and architect, Enros and Arnold Alas, who created this monument in 1947. And this is a grave marker of the Soviet soldiers. And it looked like this in the center of Tallinn on Tõnismäe Square Hill. And in 2007, it was removed from the center of Tallinn and relocated to a more marginal place in the military cemetery. Actually, not very far, but it was a very strong psychogeographical kind of move by the government. And the importance of this monument to that community, which cannot identify with the official history nowadays, was that after 1989, and especially in 91, when Estonia became independent, many monuments, most of the Soviet monuments were removed, and this one remained because there was still the Soviet or Russian army in Estonia, and the government didn't dare to touch this monument because it was the central symbol of the Soviet power. And also it became this kind of lieu de mémoire for the Russian-speaking community because they suddenly, because the whole idea of center and periphery completely changed, and in the memorial and symbolical sense as well. So the Russian people, many of them were not part of the Estonian society suddenly, not part of the Estonian nation, and they found themselves on the margins of this new formation, and this monument came to symbolize this Soviet past when they had the citizen rights, and in the newly independent Estonia, these people didn't have, or many of them didn't have, and still had to prove their loyalty to the new state. So it became a place of rituals, and each year on the 9th of May, there were these collective gatherings of Russian-speaking people in front of this monument, and this rituality is really something that I really became super interested in, because it is very different from what it used to be in the Soviet time. So this is post-Soviet time, all these images. And you can see it's totally like grassroots kind of rituality invented on spot. And of course it was a place of controversy as well, and the monument was vandalized several times. This is an interesting image because here are the members of the community. A little bit, this reminds me of the Baltic chain, which actually brought Estonia to independence. And here are some examples of rituality in front of the monument in the Soviet time. And also it was the part of the project in Venice, where I actually put this monument in this historical perspective and tried to show that the meaning of this monument changed throughout the time, even in the Soviet period, so it wasn't always the same. And rituality changed, but what was common to all this Soviet time rituality was that it was orchestrated from top. So here are 3 images that were part of a kinetic object, and it was called Kinetics of Power. And this is to actually represent this psychogeographical move by the Estonian government. So the monument in the former location, then the location without the monument. This is center of Tallinn, and this is the cemetery. And also it is a proof of in a way, it shows the technocratic way the government chose to approach this very complex issue of dealing with memory and social problem. And so instead of including the marginalized community into the public discussion about memory, it was decided by the neoliberal party in 2007 that they would use the monument as an argument and win the elections in March 2007, which actually was very successful. The Party of Reforms won the election, and the monument was removed. That was the promise, the political promise. But the elections was in March, and in April, end of April, the bones were dug out from the grave in front of the monument, and the monument had to leave. But of course, it was a very strong provocation, or it was perceived as a very strong provocation by the people who cared about the monument. So there was a confrontation with the police, and it all ended with this image, which appeared in the main Estonian daily newspaper. It says, "The face of the week, unknown Russian scum," and this was to represent the whole Russian-speaking community in Estonia, and this was the public image created and sold internationally also. And this is already a little reportage of my intervention 2 years later, in 2009, on the 9th of May, in the place which was now officially a usual park. And 9th of May, of course, is not a Victory Day, but a Europe Day in Estonia. So it was a usual park, not a sacred location anymore, not a grave, not with grave marker, but just an empty park. So I was walking there with my sculpture, a golden color. But of course, the publics were there because the members of the Russian community not only visited the new location of the monument, but they still continued to come to this empty park and to commemorate the event of relocation and the death of the monument in its former meaning. And you see all these flowers, they were there when I brought the sculpture. And immediately the sculpture actually ended up embodying the phantom of the monument. So, and it was not just the phantom seen by the members of the Russian community, but also you see all this rituality immediately reenacted with this golden effigy of the monument. So there was a little bit of wind. It was a windy day. And then the monument was really taken care of. But then there was the police who decided to resolve the problem. The statue was immediately perceived as a problem that had to be resolved. So the problem was resolved this way. And there was a discussion, and to my question, why can't this sculpture be there? The police said that, yes, but we already have a bronze soldier, and it's in the cemetery. And I said, but this is not bronze soldier, this is a golden soldier. So it still had to go. So it was arrested, and I was arrested as well. and the project in Venice actually happened only due to the fact that I had 2 copies of the of the sculpture, and the second sculpture went to Venice and was presented there in this context of several videos and reportages. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great example of not how only art, but also the location of this art can be a very politicizing thing, I imagine. Our next presenters, who are also panelists in the discussion afterwards, are 2, and I have to look because it's a tricky name. It's Svatopluk. Svatopluk? That's you. Hello, welcome. And also Zuzana, who are together running a cultural center called Banská Stanica in Slovakia. And I'm very interested to see how also in a non-urban environment, public art in or art in a public space can play this politicizing role, and what your experiences are with that, as opposed to maybe Prague or Tallinn, which are much more urban environments. I'm interested to see what your experiences are. I am sure the presentation will show shortly, but maybe you can start introducing your project yourselves, what your experiences have been while we work on the technical details. Zuzana, Svatopluk, can I ask you to shortly introduce yourself while we wait for the presentation to appear?
Hello.
Oh, and can we get the microphones
Hello,
on?
hello, okay.
All right.
Okay, this is working. We will share the micro. Hello, so thank you for the opportunity to invite us to present our, let's say, local story or country story in the big city. I am a visual artist, and together with Zuzana, we are living on Slovakian countryside.
And we are living together. That's very important because we are also a couple. And the topic art and all this work around art, it's our daily life from very early morning till the very late night. Yes, I finished art history and theory of art, but last 11 years I'm working as a fundraiser, producer. Sometimes I'm a curator together with Svatopluk, but when we are coming to presentation like this today, we used to present ourselves that Svatopluk is art director of our organization, and I am the executive director. But it means that we are doing everything.
Sometimes we are cleaner too.
Yes, taxi driver and social curator of our artists, so everything. But we are not technicians, so we don't know what's happened right now.
But we can continue. I mean, why we are here and how we are related to the main topic. 2009, we decided to move to countryside, to central Slovakia.
From Prague?
Yes, from Prague. After 6 years spent in Prague. 2009, because I'm a visual artist, and 2008 I won the Young Visual Artist Award, and 2009 I spent 2 months in residency in New York, and after I came back
to Prague.
Somehow the scale of the cities and how I was thinking about where to stay and what is making sense changed, and so we talked about in our kitchen in Prague. Okay, let's move to New York or let's move to countryside.
So we moved to countryside.
And we established international artist in residency program there.
Yeah, so let's continue without a picture. So it's already 11 years that we are living in the countryside. It's mean probably you know where Bratislava is. It's nearby Vienna. But probably you don't know where Banská is.
Okay.
Banská is the old mining small city with less than 10,000 citizens. It's probably the big village than city. But it was a very, very important part, that's our logo, Banská stanica. You can, and please map. Yeah, so here the red point, it's us. Bratislava, you see, where is it? Sorry.
And we like the position quite a lot because it's very central in Slovakia, and we can reach our neighbor countries like almost in 3 hours with
But
cars.
it's also the central of the Europe. We have several we have several central of the Europe, and one is very nearby Banská Štiavnica. The other one is in Ukraine. There is also one official Central Europe in
Poland too.
Poland. So you can choose, and we choose this small village. It looked like a fairy tale from the fairy tale. It was an important part in medieval age. As I told already, it was mining region. We can also mention Fugger family because thanks this middle-aged billionaire, very important business family, the central Slovakia looks so beautiful.
So it's industrial and mining area, and there was also metal industry, but everything after Velvet Revolution collapsed.
We don't want to present you hundreds of projects and nice picture of exhibitions, artworks, pictures from concert which we organized, but we selected several very
small interventions, let's say.
Small interventions which are important for us. This is 10 years old interventions. It's from 2010, and it was kind of the summer students workshop, first from all in our history, and one.
And you know this habit, like it's in Italia, like you for the drying to put. The textile outside, but the idea of this intervention is the city start to have problems with the gentrification and collapsing a little bit. So the houses are beautiful, the architecture structure is beautiful, but
they are empty.
They are empty, and we are losing the citizens.
Yeah, it's probably you know Kateřina Šreda project from last year Biennale. She did a project with Český Krumlov, which is also in the UNESCO list, and Banská Štiavnica is also more than, I think, 25 years or 26 years it's on UNESCO list. And, one step back, and that was because we would like to speak how we are connecting our audience in this small city. Who is the audience? There is only one gallery living in the past time, let's say. There is some small community of artists, but they are very, very local. So who is the audience? So we are trying to meet new and new visitor everywhere. And so this was for our audience quite provocative installation. Imagine freshly washed, nice smelling blanket in the middle of the city. This was provocation, and immediately after the installation we got many emails that we are not Štiavnica people. We came from the city. We don't know how
to put garbage to the city.
Yes. So also with a small intervention, you can start the dialogue. So that was the beginning. This is the trains. Trains and stations are connecting with our activity too, because in 2009 we rent an empty but still function train station from the state, and we started to organize the things in the building and around the building.
So here you can see the main hall, the waiting hall, which was almost abandoned when we came. We rent this place and we start without making any reconstruction, just to fill the empty space with our culture activities, where everybody is it's open to come and to join it.
Yeah, this waiting hall was a big challenge because it's too big for any kind of activities with a bad acoustic. It's more like the swimming pool acoustic. So when we organized there the concert, that was still like kind of site-specific audio performance. But every year from 2009, we invited artists to make the piece for main wall in this hall, let's say.
It was quite big and big challenge for the artist too, because it's like 6 by 9 meter, this canvas you see, but also we had the projects which was bigger, Dave was bigger, and and the artists in Slovakia, they mostly don't have big studios where they can make formats like this. And but the important thing was it started to work. The travelers realize we are doing something there, not only because behind the closed doors, but also in the main wall we start to be visible.
Yes, because when you see this kind of piece, you cannot realize that it's there. So the travelers passing through the hall, coming to the cashier.
But also very soon the negative reaction came. For example, the local public didn't like this painting. It was too melancholic, too sad, too negative. So for the next year we invite the Rodina, Czech duo, and they react on this situation.
And you can see here, it's the cashier. And this is also a very crucial moment, like in 2013, Svatopluk.
13 years.
Yeah. We got the permission or the license to sell the ticket. So Svatopluk and me, artist curator, we were sitting here in this small room, and each day we were selling the ticket to the travelers. So we got like direct reaction. How it looks, it's ugly, it's bad, how much it cost, what we should present. So this was kind of social experiment which ended 2 years ago. And I can't believe that we did it 7 years. 7 years we also was the kind of the first contact place. So these are different works from different artists. I'm so sorry.
This is Lucia Tkačová and Aneta Monachisha 2 years ago.
And this was last piece done by Rudolf Sikora, conceptual artist. Next level, let's say,
was organizing we call it like picnics. Picnics we organize in different places in the city. to show the citizens how they can use the space, their neighborhood, because the people are not using the places, so we invite people and local producers to do something, but the main idea was to use the public space.
Yeah, and this is from Drieňová housing estate from socialismus, and interesting thing is that half of the citizens of this nice, beautiful fairy tale village or city living here. So they are living in the blocks of flats and looking to the nice Calvary. So in 2012, this picnic was, and it was fantastic. But the people
was euphorized, and they asked till today when we will continue this activity. But the area is not empty anymore. Supermarket Bila was built there.
So they lost it, also the view to the Calvary. This is from Dialogue exhibition, which we organized in March or April this year, thanks to the Czech Center. And what we did, as you see, this beautiful, nice gallery space, but few months before this show, it was look like whole socialism era. So we clean it, nice brown carpet. We polish it, the floor, and that was very criticized by the citizens of Štiavnica, because they really
feel,
like.
Yes, and they feel it's not finished. That's the
yeah.
And maybe little bit shortly, because of the time, these two other interventions.
These two images are not any art project. In 2050, when the big topic of refugees came to the newspaper, and everybody, also in Slovakia, which is not directly connected with this physical situation that the refugees are crossing the streets. In this city, one day we saw this
in
graffiti.
The night, this graffiti stop immigration was, so we recreate next day the graffiti with the welcome in Štiavnica, welcome in our city.
But it's very important because back, please, Svatopluk. This is very important because this was like not artistic act, but this was like the citizen. Like we feel as a part of the city, so we immediately react. And that was 1 year before Kotleba party, extremist party, get into the Slovak parliament.
And also into the local government. And this is the last project, very briefly. I redesign. We have a very nice entrance to our village, and it was quite damaged, so I redesigned that, and we make reconstruction of it.
Yeah, we did because we are living in a village which have 300 citizens, so this is the different story, but it's close to the Banská Štiavnica, so we organized a public event, and few months after this nice event, Kotleba, these Nazi guys, announced that he will come to the village. So what we did, first, we asked our mayor to cancel it, and he said it's impossible because that's the official representative of the local government in this time.
So we only make this kind of small intervention. We cover it with the black tool, we feel he's not welcome.
Yeah, so he's not welcome.
All right,
and
guys, I really have to ask you to to finish, because we have another presenter, and I would really like to go into a discussion with you guys about what this means. But thank you very much. And then last but not least, we have Monika telling us about her work, I think mostly in Poland, if I'm correct. Yes. So thank you, Monika, for telling us about your work as an artist and activist.
Hi, hello. How to, should I press it?
It will come.
Okay.
It takes a few seconds.
I won't be long.
All right.
I work mostly with textile and embroidery. And I'm using embroidery and textile, but I also embroidery on a paper. And I want to start with this one. Actually, it's the first time when I'm showing this work, because it was, I made it when I was on holidays, and I found it in some vintage second-hand store, and I make it just for fun. But with the time, I realized that maybe it has some meanings, and I'd end up finally that it could be a good entrance for today. So this is the Vogue cover from the January 89, and I just like cover with embroidery. Some of the text to have. It was written that fashion 89, the news and the new line color, and here is skin and lotion, emotions. Yes, skin and emotions. So I cover all this of this women magazine pieces to leave it just this fashion and stuff combined with fashion for women to make it like a political statement. Because when was the transformation in Poland in 1899, when the Solidarność start to protest in a stocznia, at the same time there was some other stuff doing around the world, and I have. When I'm watching on the what happened after the transformation in Poland, so I have an idea that the transformation was made for a capitalism system to grow it for new markets. I put a lot of embroidery in the public space, like to comment it with kind of the, also as a political statement, because embroidery does not belong to the public space at all. And while you comment with embroidery, it means that this is this domestic, local, like intimate tool, kind to be a political statement, because it belongs to some totally different area. And going back to 1989, in Poland, the history with things, with all the stuff happened in Stocznia, was Wałęsa was involved, came into this everyday history story as like a man's story. It means that there was a strike in Stocznia, but it was local, and when the fighters during those strike they got what they were fighting for. Wałęsa wanted to finish the strike, but Anna Walentynowicz, who was staying with him on the stage, he said, "You cannot finish the strike because the people are on strike in different cities in Poland, and you have to make this strike like the countrywide, not only local." So. When Wałęsa closed this gate, but she opened those gates, and because what she did, Anna Walentynowicz, those strike become like a Polish strike, not only Gdańsk strike. So it was not a strike connected with one city. And when the strike became like a Poland-wide, it started to be very political. And with the time, the communism government crashed down. But when the round table was on, there was only one woman there, and it was Hanna Suchocka, and the only men stayed there. And we are taught in the schools that the Wałęsa and his men friends were belonging to Polish transformation system. So I'm making this kind of embroidery lists. Sorry, it goes very fast. This is a list of the. This is Wałęsa girlfriends. In Polish, it's Wałęsa, przyjaciółki Wałęsy. So I made this embroidery list with all the women which are the part of this history, but they've been like totally forgotten. So, and I'm making this kind of list, and this is Wałęsa girlfriends, this is Jesus girlfriends. Mostly, some of them I made the research, and some of them they are just my imagination. Because I believe that it's impossible today to get know to the real identity of the women from the past, because some of them they are just gone and they're gonna be gone forever. So I'm just giving myself. Yeah, I can do this. That's why I'm doing this. That I let my imaginary women to become real, and they are represented. This one which are gone forever. And this is Piłsudski girlfriends. Piłsudski is a guy who helped Poland to get independence in 1918. And that's the embroidery works in a gallery, but the gallery, it's not like a the democratic space, because not everybody will go to the gallery for many reasons. Excuse me.
No, I think it's interesting, and we will see how we can make the link maybe to public space. But if I can ask you to round up, then we can also go into the panel
that's
discussion.
the link to the public space.
Great. Very nice.
So, because the gallery is not, as I said, democracy space, so I'm taking my works into the public space, and this is the flag made of Piłsudski girlfriends, and I'm marching with this flag on the 11th November, which is Polish Independence Day. And this is all those women who help Piłsudski to get to guide the Poland to the independence. And so I'm using those. I'm making like a monuments using this textile in the public space. So I make like a photocopy and I print it. So each name is repeated many times, giving the representation for others who are forgotten. Here, thanks to my activity, all those lists were published in a Polish magazine. So it's it goes further to the wider audience. And here I also work with embroidery as a workshop. And this is workshop in United States. And this is 3.5%. So I'm using embroidery to build the relation between the people and to discuss some ideas while working on it. And this, now I'm going to read it. This 3.5% theory is a theory based on the analysis of social movement that avoid violence and those for which is a tool for struggle to achieve goals, made by Erika Chenowich. from Peace Institute from Harvard. The 3.5 theory assumes that civil disobedience is the most effective method for major social change. And to win the case with it, you just need to attract and actively involved about 3.5% of society. And when the Peace, which is our local strictly right party, wanted to restrict the abortion law, there was a huge protest in Poland called the Black March in 2016, and I embroidered the quotation from the Transparent. So here is, I had an abortion, and also the Polish government wanted to add to the abortion law that they're gonna like a check for every woman who got the abortion. No, not to got the abortion, but to miscarriage, or they miscarriage, or they kill the baby.
Sorry, Monika, this is super interesting. I would really like to discuss it with you and with the other panelists, and
but
we have very few time left.
I want to finish.
One last thing, go for it.
So, according to this 3.5%, to encourage people to practice civil disobedience, I was starting to embroidery during this 2016 in the trains on this textile, which is behind the hat. So I was making this like illegal vandalism embroidery in the train. And here you can see as I teach my son how to do this. And here on the University in Rochester, New York, I got the classes with the students on the gender studying, and I teach them how to practice this civil disobedience, and we were practicing on the university room, and that's what we did. On the very end, I just think that we have to encourage ourselves and be nice to each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Monika. Then I'd like to invite all the speakers back on stage. Pavel, Kristina, Svatopluk, Zuzana, and Monika, please do take a seat. And while they go on stage, can I please have another round of applause for all of these very interesting presentations? All right, and unfortunately we have very few time left for a reflection on all of this, but as I was looking to these presentations, what struck me was that 1989, even if I was all of 1 year old, and so very, very much did not live this age, seems to have been an age of a change of system. A change where I think nearly everyone mentioned the neoliberal turn of events, be it in Prague, be it in Poland, be it in Slovakia, be it elsewhere, where also the role of art in public space has changed. And so I was wondering, seeing this change, how maybe today there's a new change coming. There's more than 3.5% of the people, I think, of child on the streets today. In Hong Kong, 1 out of 4 people came in the streets to reclaim a different kind of system, different kinds of politics. So my question would be, in a public space that is very commodified today, that is very much in this neoliberal turn, which you can see, for example, in Brussels, where they take away public benches to change them for terraces where people can consume alcohol if only they pay €5 for a glass being served by a waiter and not 50 cents if you get it from a night shop. These kind of things are happening. And so my question to you guys would be, how could you change this narrative again? How can you reoccupy, reclaim this public space, and what role can art play in facilitating such a change? There's this neoliberal turn of commodifying space, using it for city marketing, using it more and more as a way of, okay, we need to push this liberal idea, make businesses happen, make a small state intervention. So what role does art play in that? Does it help to do that? Does it help to attract tourists? Does it help to bring money to businesses? Or should it be a critical role? Should it be a role where it tries to change this way of looking at public space? I see, Pavel, I saw you were smiling when I was asking the question. Do you want to say something about this?
Thank you. As I said, I feel like I'm a like postmodernist person, like everybody here. So I not really strongly believe that the art could really change the world in the way as I don't know, in 1968 the artists really believe that they could change the world, but it definitely helps me. It means if I doing some art project in the public space, it's I'm doing this very selfishly for myself to don't get crazy from these total social disconnection or a disconnection which is now running in my country. The Prague is the capital of the neoliberal in Europe. I think we have a terrible situation, not only with the housing crisis, with the homeless, of course, with the social problems. So if I am doing firstly, let's say quite selfishly for myself to do something, because it's quite hard to look at the people on the streets, and it's not very nice to see how the beautiful buildings are destroyed because of the neoliberalism, and how the art are slowly are cleaned from the public space, and especially with the other social problems.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe Kristina, you could reflect on that, because I think what you showed is how art, or the position of it, could also be an implication on social inclusion or exclusion, notably in Tallinn. Do you think that, for example, I know you don't want to talk too much about this project that you presented, but still, do you think these kind of projects of revitalizing this area with this fake statue, or like the copy of the statue, is it somehow supporting, like is art supporting a social movement? Is it going against the social movement? How do you see your work as an artist in correlation with this social issue? There's a microphone there.
Thank you. First of all, I think this project particularly shows how neoliberalism is actually detached from the actual social reality. So how this, in particular, this neoliberal party dealt with this very complex social and memorial issue, and how little it actually tried to engage into political discussion and like to engage those or everyone involved in this issue of collective memory. But in a way, well, nowadays the political situation has already changed in Estonia, and it's taken up this more conservative phase. But and also we have like new generation politicians in the political scene. But back 10 years ago, this neoliberal, like for instance, the leader of the Party of Reforms, who is responsible for the relocation of the monument, he is still from the generation of politicians who started their political career in the Soviet time in the Communist Party. So there are still those patterns of this kind of thinking about problem solving. They're still similar. Mm-hmm. It's like people.
So you
think
need to change these. You need to change these systems. You need to change the way that people think.
Yes, in a way it is part of this process of decolonization, because when we're talking about the 1989, it is all about becoming free from colonial rule, but at the same time we have to realize that to liberate ourselves from the colonial rule, it's all in our minds. So we have to get rid of those patterns and stop reproducing them. So stop to kind of learn that knowledge that we got from the or that we inherited from the colonial rule.
And I think what Monika, what you were doing with the embroidery notably is kind of relating to that, because sometimes, at least I found it very interesting to see how, for example, university students would start to do embroidery on their seats, and in that way, for me, it's as much about the embroidery as it's about the message behind it. And the message of the 3.5%, for example, I think it's a very strong message. Is that, do you think this helps to change the way people think? Do you think your project with embroidery and the messages they bring in public space, do they help to change the way people perceive and think of society? Do you think they can bring about a change in how we organize ourselves? It's a big, big responsibility.
I have no idea how the public, like the urban embroidery, how big impact it has on the people or to the reception of the reality. But I just can say what are my impression while I'm working with people and I'm encouraging them for acting in the way that I'm encouraging everybody for civil disobedience on many levels. You don't need to be a vandalism and do embroidery in trains or planes, but I think that the civil disobedience works in a variety of levels, and making embroidery in trains or whatever on the university chair, it just has it has this kind of it's like a metaphor or different kind of disobedience, because I think that this post-liberal system is very tricky and wants us to think that while you're gonna buy a vegan food, which is 3 times more expensive than something which is not called vegan but it's just simple bean, makes us that we are in the system. So actually we have to be aware that we are the part of the system and how we can deal with it, and that everybody can deal with it, because embroidery is such a easy and easygoing thing. Everybody can do this, and it's so not into the disobedience from this, like the cultural point of view. So the everything can be civil disobedience. The stuff what you are choosing in the store, in the food store, is also the part of civil disobedience. Or you are
I very much think that every choice you make in life is constantly political.
Yes, definitely.
People often say I'm not political, but then if you're choosing to eat or not eat meat, or if you're choosing to ride your bike or your car to work, these are very political choices.
Yes, but also we have to be aware and about that the system wants us to think that the reality it's on us, but it's not. It's not, because my choice, if I'm gonna choose the plastic bottle or drinking from the crane in toilet, it won't change anything, because we need, at this moment where we are now, we need a system change, and the system is changing from on the political level. So we have to put the impact somewhere higher.
Do you, maybe back to Svatopluk and Zuzana, is that something that you also feel in the more less urban environment, like in the Banská Stanica where you were working? Do you think it plays a role there? Are people aware of the choices they're making? Is there a politicized public space? You noticed, for example, the thing with the laundry, that people very much objected against that? Is that because there is no habit of discussing it or being critical to a system that exists?
Yes, I mean the situation is special in and simply we realize very soon as we moved to the countryside, the people there are frustrated, and the problem we are it's our daily problem. It's like the people are speaking about the past, about the before the Velvet Revolution, because they lose the jobs, and it's not like in big city you just go and find. It's not so easy to find a new job, and so the culture is, let's say, for them not so important what we are doing, because they have to fight for their existence. So.
But I think that it's absolutely necessary to speak with the people. So I don't want to present our project as an artistic project, but is it? But we feel more like active citizens, and this is the goal, you know, to reach more active people, or to somehow motivate them or teach them that they have also the voice. I have one thing that you know, this very extremist neo-Nazis party. This region where we are living, it's their homeland. So they are flourishing there, and they are communicate the ideas with the people. So the challenge is to communicate, to go. To living the safety place in a urban culture spots, and to really communicate with the people.
Yeah, and I think this is a common denominator a bit in all of your presentations, that it's much more than just the work of art you present. It's very much about the message behind and trying to convey something to the people that are confronted with it. And unfortunately, we don't really have time for another round of questions, but I would like to ask with just one question, which each of you has like 5 seconds to answer it, which is like, what physical space, what should be the space for art in the place where you work? Should it be a gallery? Should it be a museum? Should it be the street? Should it be a station? Should it be, where do you think today art should be? That's the question. Would you like to start, Zuzana, by
shopping center.
Shopping center? Great. Okay. Svatopluk?
I think everywhere. Let's put it everywhere. We have very good experiences in to share it, or in the local pubs.
In local pubs. Okay, great. Very, very nice answers. Monika, where should art be for you?
I agree. The grocery stores, yes, on the food markets.
Grocery stores. Very nice.
Well, I think every artwork should be conceived and presented in the context where it would make the biggest impact. So it always depends on the artwork.
Very
and
deep.
The
it would
message you want
depend.
to
Yeah,
convey.
of course. Yeah.
On the periphery, in any meaning of it, on the periphery, because on the periphery there are now fascists in the public space, which are communicate with the people and took power. So we have to fight against the fascisms again and create new revolution, and we have to go to the periphery in every meaning of its meaning.
All right, in the periphery, in its broad meaning of terms. Thank you very much to all of the panelists, Pavel, Kristina, Svatopluk, Zuzana, and Monika. Please give them another round of applause.